Mode X, a game of abstract strategy. I don't always play abstract games. I don't know why. I recently played a couple of them, such as, say, Santorini, for example. I enjoyed those, and when the designer contacted me, asked me if I wanted to take a look at the design at Mode X, I thought, yeah, sure, why not? I had a look at the page on BoardGameGeek. It seemed interesting. It looked like a reinforced, mature version of Connect 4, which just so happens is one of my favorite games from my childhood. I don't play it very much now. I play with my daughters, but when I was a kid, that was one of my favorite games. I moved on from that one, but still I thought, oh, look at that. There was an almost nostalgic appeal to me in seeing what seemed to have something in common with Connect 4. Connect's Mode X, similar to Connect 4, but that's pretty much the only similarity, is a game where you do attempt to form patterns that will allow you to score points. Here, yeah, they score points. They don't win you the game automatically like you do by connecting 4 pieces in a row. In Connect 4, also, the linear connection is not the only one that allows you to score points. Other interesting things, this is a game for 2 to 4 players, which is not all that common in abstract games, or at least most of those that I played are for 2 players. Also, it's a game with very high production quality. The production values are very high. The pieces, the board, everything looks really nice and feels nice when you manipulate the pieces. So I don't really know why on the cover they decide to make the board look like it's made of, I don't know, it looks like it's made of like rusty metal or dirty gray plastic, and the pieces also look a little depressing. The board is beautiful and white, and the pieces are bright and very pleasant to manipulate, as you will see in the next segment in the main part of my review. Actually, you know what? Why don't we move to that part, and why don't I show you how Mode X works. The rulebook for this game looks very thick, but it is because it is in many languages. In truth, the rules are only 4 pages. As you can see, 2 pages are mainly examples. Super short rules. The game is played on this unusual looking boards with these plus symbols all over the place, which I use to regulate the placement of the main game pieces, which are these X-shaped pieces. Each player has a set of such pieces and a set of flat square markers that are used to represent scoring. So basically each such marker you place on the board is a point that you have scored. Alright, there are also some Joker wild X's that are placed on the board at the beginning of the game. How does the game work? Super simple. It is your turn, you take one of your X pieces and you put it anywhere on the board that is free, that there isn't an X already. Done. That's it. We can wrap it up. This is the end of the review. Well, no, we need to know why you do this and what you're trying to achieve. What you're trying to achieve is you're trying to score points. You score points when you manage to place 5 of your hexes in one of 3 possible configurations. One is simply 5 in a straight line, which can be in different directions, so like Connect 4, but with 5. You also score if the 5 are in this plus configuration here, or also if they are in an hex type of configuration. It is still 5 hexes, and that would be scoring configuration. When you do create such a configuration, then you replace the axes that form that shape with scoring markers. So that's great, because each one that you place on the board is a point. Now, right now I just scored 5 points. However, in so doing, I also opened up new spaces where myself or my opponent can play pieces. So it is entirely possible that areas where score markers have been placed will be scored later, and when that happens, then simply new score markers are placed on top of the old ones. Aha! That's a nice plot twist. You didn't expect that, did you? So new score markers are placed on top of the old ones, and basically that's a way of taking away points from the opponent. Now you see these wild X's here. They can be used by either player to score, that is to complete a scoring configuration. Say this is the case. I managed to create that configuration there. That's 5 in a plus sign. I can score it, but I do not get to place a marker in the area where there was the joker that I used. So I get to score my axes, but not that one. However, what I do get to do is to take the one that I used in the configuration that scored, and I get to place it anywhere on the board where there is an empty space. And of course, as I'm doing that, I'm also trying to create situations that may allow me to score more in the future, like in this case. Now I'll be scoring those 3 points, and so on and so forth. The game continues until one of the players has scored enough points, has enough points on the board to meet requirements, and the number of required points to win the game depends on the number of players. The fewer players, the more points you need to end the game. Also, the game ends if one of the 2 players runs out of X markers, of X tokens, or of scoring tokens. When that happens, one of the 2 supplies is empty for one of the 2 players. The game is over. At that point, the player with the highest total is the winner of the game. Also, there is an immediate automatic victory if one of the players manages to complete a configuration, a scoring configuration made only of wild hexes. And as I said, when you relocate them, it needs to be in an empty space, but usually you cannot use the marker just move to complete another scoring pattern, unless there's the only exception. You're completing a configuration made only of jokers, only of wild ones, then you can do it. You can complete the configuration, and also you end the game and you win the game immediately. And this is how the game works. A very pleasant experience. Component-wise, the game is absolutely nice. Now, actually, as I was showing you the game, sometimes I was struggling to put the things in the right location, but that's because I had the camera between me and the game, so my hands were coming at a bit of a strange angle. I don't want that to be misleading. The X fall into place very easily when you're playing the game. There's no problem whatsoever. The components work smoothly, and they're also very beautiful. They also create nice patterns. There is definitely an aesthetic experience to it. I think that was even taken into account in the color palette, which is unusual. You don't have the usual red, yellow, blue, and green, which is what I would expect. Somehow the palette creates a net of colors that go together well in a more pleasant and nuanced way. But of course, if I just wanted to look at art, I could go to a museum. But I'm playing a game, so I also want gameplay to be interesting. And gameplay here is actually very interesting. I didn't expect it to be like that. Yes, at the beginning I was going Connect 4-wise. I'm doing even like Tetris-wise. I'm doing my thing. I'm trying to stop you from doing your thing, and we see who can get there earlier. That was the first approach. Then, of course, the first time that I scored something, and I realized that the board now was much more open than it was before. New opportunities open for me and for my opponent. So actually something tricky is, as you see that opponent is scoring, rather than stopping them directly by always staking one of your hexes at the end of a possible line of an opponent, it is to build a partial configuration around what they're also building. So if they complete it, the pieces that form it go away, and then you immediately complete your own. That presents a nice challenge to the opponent, because now the opponent is like, if I do complete this, I'm gonna, yes, score 5 points immediately, but then they're gonna be reduced to 2, and since I've opened the thing, now the opponent actually has scored 5. So there is this back and forth of like really trying to think, which is typical of all games, or most games that are not completely gambling games. Now, thinking the opponent that works at different levels, that works with different incomplete patterns, and you have to take into account how the board will look after a player scores. So again, just going to stop the next thing that your opponent is going to do is not necessarily the best strategy, because there are other strategies that allow you to let them get a little bit of points, and you get a lot more right after that. And of course, both players are trying to do that to each other. The flow of the game is very nice. Analysis paralysis didn't seem to be a problem. That is always something that worries me about abstract games with like a thinking component such as this one. But in truth, again, there was only a range of options that seemed to be really interesting. You will need to consider the 2-3 areas where the opponent may be dangerous, the 2 or 3 things that you're trying to do. Occasionally, yes, a pattern emerges out of nowhere. And that, of course, is fun when you have that haha moment as you realize new possible connections. But analysis paralysis has not been a problem. The flow, the pace of the game is nice. I think this game works perfectly as a type of play with your spouse game because it's simple, light, easy to teach. Many gamers have non-gaming spouses, and probably you can convince your spouse to play this game with you. Pleasant, nice, pleasant game with a lot of interesting angles to it, with strategies that emerge over time, with very strong interaction, without feeling too much cutthroat. It is confrontational in nature, but the feel of the game, maybe also because of the abstract nature of the elements, does not feel all that confrontational, does not cause too much bad blood to go around the table. Mod X, beautiful components, beautiful gameplay, absolutely enjoyable. Abstract games may not be for everybody, but if you want to give a try to an abstract game from time to time, well, this could be a good option.